An ABC7 investigation, it is a story you'll only see here. If your loved one was found dead, you would hope police would do everything in their power to find out what happened.
I pored over piles of documents, and I'm going to show you why that might be questioned by Canadian teen Thomas Brown's family. But first, a bit of background on his case.
Thomas was a high school senior when he went missing the day before Thanksgiving in 2016. The Hemphill County Sheriff's Office was put in charge of the investigation, but Thomas was not found. After a petition was presented to the county attorney, he requested the Attorney General review what was still a missing persons case in 2018. Finally, Thomas' remains were found in January of this year off Lake Marvin Road outside of Canadian. The exact location of the remains has not been released. The Attorney General announced in August it could not determine a cause of death and suspended the investigation. And this week, Hemphill County Sheriff Nathan Lewis submitted his resignation effective Friday.
We haven't heard a lot about Thomas's case now for months, until now.
ABC7 was the first to break the investigation into Hemphill County Sheriff Nathan Lewis submitting falsified records, specifically whether he had completed periodic training reports for his team. The Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, or TCOLE, investigated that matter and, finding many of the hours of supposed training were missing, backdated, or simply wrong, it formally reprimanded Lewis last month. But here's what caught our eye in the documents from the state law enforcement agency. Allegations by two deputies that called into question how the sheriff conducted Thomas's investigation back in 2016. Former Chief Deputy Brent Clapp told TCOLE during its investigation of whether the sheriff turned in phony training reports that he didn't think it out of the question because he knew the sheriff had submitted manufactured records in connection with the Attorney General's review of how the department handled Thomas's investigation. In the summary of the TCOLE report, the investigating officers say Clapp said it wasn't outside the realm of Lewis fabricating a document because he had manufactured a supplement for a missing person a year and a half after it happened. ABC7 dug deeper to find the original statements from all the deputies interviewed in the investigation. Because some of the deputies, except for Brent Clapp, are still employed with the sheriff's office, ABC7 agreed to protect their identities. Here's what former Deputy Clapp had to say when TCOLE investigators asked why Sheriff Lewis might fabricate the training records.
Because we've been through the whole Tom Brown mess and,
right,
you know, all the... Well, hell, on that deal, he manufactured a supplement a year and a half after the fact. So, same deal.
So doing something like this is not a stretch.
No.
Yeah.
No, when you write reports a year and a half after, because why? Because we're getting ready to turn it all over to the Attorney General.
Yeah.
And I go to him and I say, you've got 2 pages in this thing. I've got 26.
Yeah.
You need to catch up some supplements. You need to do something. Where's your documentation?
Yeah.
And so a year and a half after the fact, well, and it wasn't so much that the Attorney Generals came in and they wanted to know about a video that did or did not exist. It was a huge issue. Dollar General and Frank. Mm-hmm. And he came up with a report on that a year and a half after the fact.
A second deputy also discussed the Dollar General surveillance video with a TCOLE investigator. Nathan always said there was never a video. Well, then after the Attorney General came down to talk to me about the whole situation, he said something one day in his office. He said, whenever I looked at the video from the Dollar General, there wasn't anything on there, so I threw it away. So was the surveillance video viewed and discarded? The sheriff says there was simply nothing on it. As to the documentation of the Brown investigation, though memory may be imperfect a year and a half after the fact, there is no indication the report is inaccurate. The only allegation here from the deputies is that the report was largely reconstructed long after the event, information that was passed on to the Attorney General's investigators. ABC7 asked the Attorney General for a copy of the report, and we were told that, technically, it is still an open case, so the documents are still confidential. We also asked the sheriff's office for its report on the case and have not received a response. A private investigation agency, KVII Investigations, says there was evidence that was missed by the sheriff's team, namely blood in Thomas Brown's vehicle and a shell casing from a .25 caliber gun. The deputies and Sheriff Lewis would not comment on the record for this story. But Sheriff Lewis briefly discussed Thomas's case with TCOLE investigators.
We had this missing deal come up in November, and I wasn't supposed to take over till January. And I thought we did everything right, we did everything good. We had the peer reviews with the Rangers, and they were just, the major of Company C said, man, y'all did a fantastic job. And, you know, for a small town agency up here in the Panhandle, y'all did fantastic. And they said, man, everything's good.
It should also be noted that the fired deputy, Brent Clapp, is running for sheriff himself, and one other deputy lost the last sheriff's race to Nathan Lewis. ABC7 sat down with Thomas's mother, Penny Meek, and read her the two deputies' statements that referred directly to her son's case.
What goes through your mind when you hear that?
They take an oath to serve and protect, and it's been disappointing.
Meek says she hopes the information from the TCOLE investigation encourages the Attorney General to reopen Thomas's case.
I just think that we have to know what happened, because I don't think, when you don't know what happened, it's hard to move forward.
She acknowledges she may never know why Thomas died, but she does want her son remembered for his life, not his death investigation.
He was a good person, and he was a person that you want in your society because he was kind, he was kind-hearted, he was an encourager. For some people, he was their biggest cheerleader. And I know we miss him.
Sheriff Nathan Lewis resigned effective on Friday. I reached out to TCOLE to see if the deputy's statements about the reconstructed report would warrant a new investigation. We received this response. If our investigators come across a separate crime that falls outside of our purview during the course of an investigation, we will turn it over to the appropriate state or local law enforcement agency. In this situation, the investigators had knowledge that another law enforcement agency was looking into the missing person situation. Now we have Sheriff Nathan Lewis and Brent Clapp's full interview with TCOLE investigators on our website. Go to abc7amarillo.com now to listen. If you have any information about Thomas Brown's case, call the Texas Attorney General's office or KVII Investigations.